Good morning. My name is Stefan Fusi, and I work as the Managing Director at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. And I'm thrilled to welcome you to the inaugural edition of Pitch, a competition for Black student founders. What I'd like to do now is walk you through a bit about what you can expect for today. We will have a welcome address by Dean Bill Boulding of the Fuqua School of Business, and then a fantastic fireside chat with three very special guests, entrepreneurs and sports icons. And that will be moderated by Keisha Williams from North Carolina Central University and David Robinson from the Fuqua School of Business. First, a word or two about the reason why we are here. We are celebrating our wonderful semi-finalists. We have curated 16 student founders and recent alumni founders from around the country, not just Duke and not just North Carolina Central University, the organizers of this event, but students from a wide range of schools. And we're excited about having them on board with us today. Our objective with the program is to provide access to investors and ecosystem builders who would like to see them succeed and potentially invest in their companies. Later today, they'll be competing for a $5,000 semi-finalist prize winner package, as well as the opportunity to compete tomorrow for $25,000 in cash, $25,000 in design services, and many other prizes from very generous sponsors. And so let me thank all of our sponsors. We could not do this without all of your help. We really appreciate you stepping up to be a part of this day and making sure that this program goes off without a hitch. So now what I'd like to do is welcome Dean Bill Boulding of the Fuqua School of Business to deliver a few remarks to us today.
Okay, thank you so much, Stefan, and welcome to the inaugural pitch competition in support of Black student founders, or as I like to think of it, the first pitch. And when I use the words first pitch, it makes me think of the beginning of baseball season and the idea that with that first pitch, you're building and drawing from great traditions, but it always represents a new beginning and a sense of tremendous excitement. And as I think about the pitch event that we have before us, there's some amazing traditions that we're building on. So we have the traditions of two great Durham institutions in North Carolina Central and Duke, and we have the opportunity for the excitement of a reality that too often academic institutions are siloed from one another, when we have the opportunity to come together, learn from each other, and make each other better. And so this is a beginning for us to build on the tradition of these two great institutions. What you may not know is the second amazing tradition is that there is this extraordinary history and tradition of Black enterprise in Durham. And so we now have the excitement of building on that tradition by supporting Black entrepreneurship. And it's particularly exciting that we have semi-finalists who are drawn from both Central and from Duke. And so we have the potential for local impact in Durham from these ideas that these founders have. But we also have semi-finalists, as Stefan mentioned, who are drawn from across the country. And so we have the opportunity then for Durham to have a national impact in Black entrepreneurship. And so it's really with great excitement that we're in a position to create what I hope becomes an incredible tradition around pitch. With that, more than anything, I want to get out of your way because we have some absolutely fantastic distinguished alums from Central and Duke who will now take over. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Bill. Now I'd like to bring onto the stage Keisha Williams from North Carolina Central University and Professor David Robinson, my colleague at the Fuqua School of Business, to introduce themselves and our panelists.
Very good. Thank you so much, Stefan. My name is Keisha Williams. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for the School of Business at North Carolina Central University. And it is indeed an honor to be here this morning. We are very happy to be in partnership with Duke Fuqua School of Business, CEI, and putting together this wonderful event to celebrate Black student founders. We're so proud of those who submitted their entries and those who will be recognized the next couple of days. And I think you're going to really enjoy the engagement and the fireside chats both today and tomorrow that you're going to experience. But today we have the distinguished honor of being able to have three alumni from both Duke and NCCU join us to talk about their respective interest in entrepreneurial pursuits. So what I'll do is I'm going to just do a brief introduction, though I'm certain our panelists don't really need that. And then I'm going to yield to my colleague here, David Robinson, who will then take us into the conversation. So if that sounds Good to you. Let's get started with the intro of our panelists. All right. Well, I'm going to start off first. He is a Duke alumnus who played in the NBA for 19 seasons. He won 2 national championships at Duke and a gold medal with Team USA in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. He is an NBA Naismith Hall of Famer and the co-owner of the Atlantic Hawks. And I believe I was reading this weekend that it was announced that he will be the managing director of the USA basketball men's national team in the upcoming Tokyo Olympics. So congratulations to you, Mr. Hill. Please welcome Mr. Grant Hill. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Of course, of course. Next up, we have an NCCU alumnus who co-founded the independent music label Hidden Beach Records. The label is the label that Jill Scott got her claim to fame from. He is a 2020 inductee into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame and is currently the manager of community relations at Lowe's Companies Incorporated. Please welcome Mr. Charles Whitfield. Hi, Charles.
Hey, Keisha, how you doing?
Good. And last but certainly not least, we have an NCCU law alumnus. I think we maybe share him with Campbell's and maybe Duke as well. But he is the president, vice chairman, and the alternate governor and minority partner of Charlotte Hornets. And he is a 2018 inductee in the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. Please help us welcome Mr. Fred Whitfield. Hi. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for joining us. We know you all are incredibly busy, but we appreciate the time that you're going to spend talking to those out there who are participating in this event. And now I will yield to my colleague, David Robinson, who's going to take us into this conversation.
Thank you so much, Keisha. It's great to be here today with everyone on the panel. Thank you for having me to be a part of this. We've had so much fun behind the scenes putting this event together over the last several months. You know, on the one hand, I'll just echo what Keisha said. And, you know, you guys are 3 people who need no introduction. You're each famous in your own right. I think this might be the first time in my professional career when I've ever had to moderate a panel where I had 3 Hall of Famers, each in separate halls of fame. But, you know, on the other hand, we're here to talk about entrepreneurship. And, you know, Keisha and I have been talking about the skills and the traits that go into making successful entrepreneurs. Things like resilience, grit, imagination, leadership skills, on and on. And I started to think about how valuable these skills are in a wide range of professional and personal settings, not just in the act of starting a business per se, but just as kind of in going through life's journey. And, you know, for example, Fred, you may not think of yourself as an entrepreneur, but I think you've been quite entrepreneurial in your life at various points in various junctures when you've had to pivot from one activity to another or imagine what your next goal might be. And so I thought I would kind of kick off the conversation today by just asking each of you to not so much introduce yourself, but as a way of introduction, tell us a little bit about the journey that led you where you are today, and maybe focus on a time where you had to be kind of entrepreneurial in order to get to the next step. And, you know, I mean, as a professor, I'm really used to cold calling on people, so I can just cold call. Charles, would you mind getting us started?
Some kind of way I knew I would be first, but David, thanks for the introduction, and actually great to be here with Grant and my older brother Fred, who are both mentors of mine as well as good friends. And my journey started actually when I was at North Carolina Central University. Having an older brother like Fred, I grew up listening to music with him. And actually from that pursuit, when I worked at a record store, CD store at North Carolina Central called CD Superstore, ironically enough, it's actually where I first met Grant Hill when he was a player at Duke. And our love of music, Fred's love of music, once I got out of school, led me to the dream of pursuing a record label that I helped start called Hidden Beach Records that Fred was very involved in. And actually our majority investor was a business partner of his named Michael Jordan. So taking that chance to start something basically from scratch with my boss at the time, Steve McKeever, the 2 of us started an independent record label that, you know, Jill Scott ended up being our first artist. We had a distribution deal through Sony Music, but worked in consumer finance prior to starting the record label with Wells Fargo. So having that business acumen to take that chance and take that risk was really something that, with the help of Fred, with the help of countless other people, really was something that, made me want to pursue my dream and not be afraid of hearing the word no, which a lot of times in business, especially in entrepreneurship, you hear a lot. But I took the chance, was glad to do it, had a great career, working at Hidden Beach, and now on a second phase of my career, now actually working community relations with Lowe's. So just, being able to transition from one field to the other, but business background is where it all started.
That's fantastic. And I know that we're going to have time to come back and talk more about some of that business background and how you, how you turned and how you used it at various points as you were turning from one to the other. Grant, I'm sure that when you saw the lineup here and you saw that David Robinson was moderating the panel, you had someone different in mind. And I really hate to let you down, but maybe I can turn to you now, Grant, and ask you to tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I'll start off by saying that I was relieved to know it was you and not the other memories against that other David Robinson, nightmares actually. So this is certainly a lot better. But no, much like Charles, I mean, for me, I think it's a bit different. Obviously, sports played a huge role, and from a very young age was very much involved in sports. My dad played in the NFL. I wanted to be an athlete. I was on that path, that journey, that trajectory at an early age, and was fortunate to play for quite some time. I think the values and the principles that you take from sports, and just as you talked earlier about grit and perseverance, and managing failure, handling success, working with others, being strategic, all of these traits that I think are ingrained in you, and you're conditioned almost to learn in order to advance, in order to survive, in order to thrive. I think that gave a real solid foundation for me, and there's certainly other examples of athletes who made that transition and become entrepreneurs. And so, I remember when I entered the NBA and I went through the rookie transition program, and someone mentioned that, look, you guys are all CEOs of your own corporation, and you should start to sort of think that way and manage your life that way. And so, as I went on this journey, on the court, off the court, it's a lot to sort of process and absorb. And, youth, money, and fame can sometimes be a dangerous mix. And maybe,
or not.
Yeah, no, and maybe even more so now with technology and social media and the like. And so I think it forces you to really take control and really approach your life as if you are your own CEO of your own business. And so, as I went through my career and had my hands in a number of different things off the court, for all athletes, at some point it ends, and you have to pivot. Charles talked about transitioning, and so I retired from playing basketball at 40, and it's like a whole new world has opened up, and opportunities and different pursuits and things that I'm interested in. So, but I go back to sports. I go back to learning at a young age, high school, through college, learning from a great teacher and Coach K. There's so much you can take from that. I think of people like Roger Staubach, who built a incredible $1 billion real estate business. I think of Junior Bridgman, former NBA player, who is now one of the largest Coca-Cola bottlers in the world. These are just two athletes who have made that transition, and they both would say that the values that they took from sport played a big role in their success in their next careers as entrepreneurs.
That's really interesting, Grant. And if I can just ask you a quick follow-up before I turn to Fred, just while it's on my mind, because I'm thinking about what it must be like to be in your shoes and having been, the athlete that you are, and then face business failures and successes today, business challenges, let's just say. How do the challenges that you face today in your career after sports, how does it feel compared to the challenges that you faced on the court as an athlete? I mean, do you find yourself thinking back to great triumphs or terrible defeats that you faced on the court when you're facing, business challenges today?
That's a great question, man. I think, I don't necessarily go back to various incidents or particular incidents and reference that as I'm on my journey. I think just the cumulative, the totality of the experience as an athlete, I think gives you that confidence, that what's the word I'm looking for? The necessary tools, I guess, to be willing to try new things. I will say one of the differences, though, in sports, results are immediate. You can get the results at the end of the game. If you won, you lost. If you played well, you played bad. You can almost get that possession by possession. I had a good possession there, or I did a bad job right there, and I got to do better on the next possession. And so you get the immediate results, in basketball, in my particular sport. Whereas, as an entrepreneur in business, in real life, as I like to say, it's more like sawing wood, and results aren't always necessarily immediate. And so that was one of the adjustments I think that I've made. But I just think having, in sports, playing at a high level, you're exposing yourself, you're vulnerable. You're opening yourself up to being critiqued, to being evaluated, game by game, possession by possession. And all that you go through, all that it takes, the self-reflection, the learning from losses, learning from mistakes, from failure, from success, working with others, having a collaborative spirit, learning to be fearless, learning to put yourself out there in situations when others don't want to. Like all of that, I think, are ingredients for success, particularly as an entrepreneur. And so, like I said, the totality of everything, I think, just gives you reassurance that you can, pursue dreams, endeavors that take, that there's an amount of risk. There is certainly great challenge, but also understanding at the end there can be great reward and fulfillment as well.
It just gets baked in. Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. Thank you. Fred, Can I turn it over to you now? One of the things that one of the reasons why I'm particularly happy that you're here on the panel is that you've, Duke can claim you as well as NC Central can claim you. And so I want to hear the story about, how entrepreneurship, has affected your journey and kind of what brought you over to Duke also.
Yeah. First of all, David and Keisha and Stefan, and Dean, thanks for having me here. It's a true honor for me to be here today. It's great to be here with all friends. I'm friends with literally everyone on the panel. And so it's great for me to be here. Interestingly, I do consider myself an entrepreneur, David. Have been most of my career in different roles. And, what I'd say is that, I grew up as a young person that was very lucky to have two parents that both were, I'd say, well-educated. Both Charles and my parents both have master's degrees, which was not the norm in the 60s, especially for an African-American couple. And our mom was a school teacher, first grade school teacher, who really stressed how important it was to get a great education and how education could be the difference maker. What I'd say is, Charles and I embraced that theory. And as much as we had aspired to be a professional athlete, as every young kid, and be a Grant Hill as a career and be able to earn a living playing basketball, the reality is 99.9% of us just aren't that good and don't have the God-given talent to be able to achieve that. And so I had to, as a young person, certainly hone my basketball skills in hopes that I'd be able to earn a college scholarship so that my parents wouldn't have to pay for my college education. was very fortunate to receive a full scholarship to play basketball at Campbell University. Lucky enough.
I'm pretty sure your jersey hangs in the rafters, Fred.
And well, I will say I did have a few records there until Chris Clemens came along a couple years ago and broke my records the second year in college. But I majored in economics, David, and knew at that time that I wanted to, as a fallback, be able to engage in business, learn how to do business the right way. Actually had the opportunity to go back as an assistant coach and earn my MBA at Campbell, and was thrilled to be able to do that and further my business knowledge. And as I thought about what I wanted to do as a career and then being a potential entrepreneur down the road, I wanted to find a way to tie business together with basketball. And I thought that path was to become a sports attorney or sports agent. And I felt like to be credible and be able to do it the right way and represent the best interest of my clients, not just be a runner and go and recruit the players and deliver them to someone else that would do the deals. I wanted to be the guy doing the deals and felt like I needed to go to law school. And was accepted to Campbell's Law School and also accepted to North Carolina Central's Law School. And just wanted to change from Bowies Creek, and Central seemed like the perfect place for me to go and pursue that legal education. I'm thrilled that I made that decision because it brought me to Durham and allowed me to build some great friendships with not only people on the North Carolina Central campus, but people on the Duke campus. Grant Hill and David Henderson, Johnny Dawkins, all became very close friends. Billy King. I could go down the list. And in between law school classes, I could go watch Duke play and see all my friends play and then spend time with them. And so that friendship just grew. And one of the beautiful things about this situation, Dean Bolden, is, hearing that collaboration between Central and Duke is something that many of you may or may not know, was there even when I was in law school. And so I was fortunate that North Carolina Central School of Law, UNC School of Law, and Duke University Law School had a consortium such that we could go over and take classes at the other campuses and actually not pay additional tuition, and it just became part of our open curriculum that was available to us. And knowing that I wanted to get into sports law, having done my research and finding out that the preeminent professor in the sports law field was actually a professor at Duke, Professor John Wiestart, who actually authored the book, The Law of Sports, was considered the academic expert in that area. And I was able to go over and take his class at Duke Law School, which I absolutely loved. And it really gave me the foundation. Now I'm dating myself, back in 1988, when I took his class, to be able to have him as a professor in the daytime and then watch him on Nightline at night discussing the NFL strike that was happening and how there could be a resolution to that. So that was, my marriage between Duke and Central. And just one quick aside, Drew Rosenhaus, who many of you may know is one of the preeminent sports agents in the football field, based in Miami, was actually in law school at Duke as a 1L, as a first-year law student, when I was a 3L at Central. And one day he passed me in the hallway when I was leaving class. I was headed out, being an overzealous young aspiring agent and attorney. He stopped me in the hallway and said, "Hey, man, you look like you play ball. I'd love to represent you. I'm here to become a sports agent, and I think I can do a great job for you." So fast forward now, he certainly didn't need me as a client to be ultra successful. But that's a funny story that I look back on. But just, my career has been, really entrepreneurial from the start. When I finished law school, I went out and started my own law practice, which is, not the norm. I didn't go work in the district attorney's office or the public defender's office or join a big law firm. I just had enough confidence that between my parents and their relationships in Greensboro, in my hometown, that I could hang my own shingle and build a successful law practice. And I was very fortunate that a lot of doors opened for me that my parents helped open, and people in the community that supported me. And I built my law practice, but my eye was always on being a sports attorney. I was given the opportunity to join David Falk's firm, Falk Associates Management Enterprises, who represented a friend of mine, Michael Jordan, who at the time was just a friend. And David gave me the opportunity to come in and become one of the young lawyers in his firm and represent athletes. We certainly had hoped that we would sign Grant Hill out of Duke, and I'm still appreciative to this day that we made his final three before he selected Lon Babby. I hope we were number 2 instead of number 3, Grant. That makes me feel better about it. But again, those relationships continued to grow. And then I transitioned from David's firm to an opportunity with Nike basketball and managed all of our NBA players in the Eastern Conference for about 5 years, about 150 of them, negotiating their player deals and overseeing their marketing. And then transitioned from there, from Nike basketball to the Washington Wizards, actually on the basketball side. And my law degree certainly came handy then as I became our in-house attorney, managing our salary cap and negotiating our player contracts, and also overseeing our college scouting and overseas scouting. Was there for 3 years, and then you all know the story. Michael left unceremoniously from the Wizards, as did I, when Mr. Poland decided to go in a different direction. And fortunately, Nike gave me an opportunity to come back within the Jordan brand, which was a very small company then, a $300 million company. Our goal was to get to $1 billion a year in the next couple of years. I was there for 3 years helping put the strategy together to grow Jordan brand after Michael was retired for the very last time, and that strategy included. And it was like building a business. How do you build a foundation of a small, thriving business when you're losing the core piece that's driven it all these years? How did we bring in non-basketball athletes like a Derek Jeter and, football players like Warren Sapp and Marvin Harrison, and, the list goes on, and bring colleges in like North Carolina and Georgetown and others to keep the brand growing, which is now, ironically, a $4.5 billion a year business as a small entity within Nike. But was there for 3 years. And then when Michael bought into the Charlotte Bobcats here, Bob Johnson, who started BET, Black Entertainment Television, a true entrepreneur who grew that to $1 billion entity, owned the Charlotte Bobcats. And Bob hired me and offered me the opportunity to come here as president and chief operating officer in 2006. And I've been here. I'm in my 15th season in that role. Very fortunate that, we built this business as any small family business, because if you really think about it, our 30 NBA teams really are family businesses where there's a majority owner who he and his family, or he or she and their family own that business. And we're working in and trying to grow that business. And I was also fortunate in 2010 when Michael bought majority interest from Bob Johnson, that he allowed me to invest alongside him as a minority partner and become part of the ownership team of our organization, maintain my role and have an even more broader oversight of our company. And then last but not least, Michael and I both are huge NASCAR fans. The first celebrity I ever met was Richard Petty as an 8-year-old at the Cub Scout at the Greensboro Coliseum, and I've loved the sport ever since. And I'm very fortunate that Michael and Denny Hamlin allowed me to invest alongside them in 2311 Racing, our new NASCAR entity, which is exciting for us to be able to be a part of the NASCAR world now. But it's all been entrepreneurial. It's all been based on business principles I learned in undergrad and MBA school. And then certainly being an attorney gives you the opportunity to take that business acumen and really use it in any way you want in business as you grow in the future.
Thank you, Fred. There's a couple of things that I'm hoping that we get a chance to turn back to that you've brought up, the importance of networks, building networks and cultivating networks and the importance of kind of being prepared for the next piece of the journey. But I'm seeing a bunch of questions come up in the chat window, and I want to give voice to our people who are watching on YouTube and other formats. But first, let me kick it back to Keisha.
Yeah.
Keisha, I know you've got some questions for the panel as well.
No, and David, I'm right with you, because I'm looking at the comments too, and I'm like, yes, I want to get to the comments. And so, but I do want us to have some music talk, Charles. So you and I got to have a conversation. So I just want us to just real quick, we're going to go back to, NCCU. You're a college student. You've already expressed that you had this love for music and that you worked in the record store. I guess I kind of have a two-part question here. One was, you talked about what inspired you, kind of motivation, but there has to be some level of kind of audacity to think that, I can enter into this industry that, you know, not everyone really could get access to, like, you know, how, or even know where to start to get access into this industry. So I kind of want you to talk us through that part first, to say, okay, I knew I had a talent for understanding, you know, music, to understand the industry, recognizing skills of people who, you know, we want to make sure that we're promoting and advancing. So I want you to take us through that. But then I also want you to talk about some of those challenges that you had to, you know, overcome as you were starting to get into the industry and almost like prove yourself in your capabilities in that space. Oh, I think you might be muted, Charles.
Sorry about that. Yes, Keisha. I mean, the great thing was, you know, I wasn't afraid to fail. As I worked at the CD store, I had experience on processing new releases, and ironically enough, I was processing jazz new releases, and it was a CD that came in by a guy named Norman Brown, who was a guitar player that was signed to Mojazz, which was a jazz label on Motown. And the president of Mojazz was a guy named Steve McKeever. And what I did is I just started following every release that came out on Mojazz and Motown that I saw his name on. He worked on some Boys II Men projects. He worked on Queen Latifah project. But at Mojazz, he signed several artists, one being the late Wayman Tisdale, who also played in the NBA, but a group named Impromptu. And so literally everything I saw Steve's name on, I gravitated to. And me just not knowing any different was like, hey, if I could some kind of way meet this guy, I had envisioned him being my boss. And, you know, I heard people laugh at me, tell me I'm crazy. It couldn't happen. But all I thought was the worst that could happen is if I try, is I could get a little bit short, but see what happened. And so through relationships, while I worked a 9-to-5 job at Northwest Financial and Consumer Finance, I pursued on after work trying to get into the music business. One of Fred's law partners that also went to North Carolina Central, an attorney friend named Charles Blackman, who was dabbling in a little bit of entertainment law in Greensboro. I started talking to him and literally through relationships, end up getting to Steve McKeever in LA, went and took a meeting with him, told him about the idea I had of trying to start an independent record label. You know, once I got back from LA, he expressed some interest. Then at that point, Charles and I sat down with Fred, who, you know, at the time, Fred did not know who Steve was, but Norman Brown's second record on the back for the executive producer was Steve's name. I remember showing Fred that CD, and from there started the relationship of, you know, with Fred's counsel, with Charles's counsel, with some other people, just started putting a plan together of what, you know, 4 years later would eventually become Hidden Beach Records. Fred was very influential in giving advice, you know, good or bad on his thoughts and ideas. And, you know, he was also, you know, very influential in helping set the meeting up where, you know, we ended up doing a meeting with Michael to try and get him on board, which eventually he did come on board. And through it, it was just perseverance. And literally, Steve and I started Hidden Beach in a one-room office in Santa Monica, California. You know, we were fortunate enough that, you know, Jill Scott ended up being the first artist that we signed. But all along the way, all you heard was no, 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 no. And so anybody trying to get in entrepreneurship, that's the word you will hear the most is no. But also through relationships, it also tells you to keep driving and keep moving. And so through that, you know, fortunate enough to have some great relationships, to have some people that were really in my corner, and having that background of, you know, at Central, in school, but working at the record store, just having that knowledge of, you know, as I worked the 9-to-5 job at the record store, of learning how the industry worked, and, you know, once again, not being afraid to take that chance to step out there. And so I was glad I did. You know, fortunate for a lot of people who were in my corner, and to this day was just great when you could walk into a record store and buy a Jill Scott record or buy a Mike Phillips record or buy an Unwrapped CD. It's just that great, you know, that appreciation of all the hard work that you put into it.
No, that's perfect. And just to kind of, and this could be, you know, for any of you, because I think it's been kind of a consistent trend on everybody's story, it's relationships, you know, how to build relationships and networks. How important it really has that been to you in your career? Can you say that the people that you knew in college or the people that you still know today that are, we always talk about, make sure you're not the smartest person in your group. You want to make sure you're always around people that can, uplift you and help you and support you. How important has that been in your interview, your respective growth and success?
Hey, Keisha, I'm going to jump in on this one because I refuse to follow Grant Hill again. As eloquent a speaker as he is, him having just called the NCAA National Championship game 3 nights ago, it's a little intimidating to follow him as a speaker. So I'll just jump in quickly and respond to that. And what I say is, there's nothing more important than relationships. And, the thing that I've learned through my life and through my career journey is that relationships have to be reciprocal. They can't be one-sided. You can't just take from a relationship and not try to find a way to give back to that relationship. And then it's about reaching back and helping the next group of young people be able to achieve their dreams. And anyone that thinks they've achieved any level of success because they were the smartest person or they did it on their own or they figured it all out, I think is really mistaken. All of us have had a lot of people that invested in us, that gave us, ideas, counsel on how to do things the right way. As I look to my 2 mentors in the NBA, I think of the 2, best business operators in the NBA and Rick Welts at Golden State and Scott O'Neil at Philadelphia. They took me under their wings 15 years ago, the day I started in this role in Charlotte, and said, we're going to teach you how to run this business the right way. And what I've tried to do is do the same for other young NBA professionals as they come in and seek to follow in the paths that we've walked in. But it's relationships across the board and literally any and everything that you do. Just trying to be a good person and trying to help people when you can. And then when you need help, not be afraid to ask for help, because people will feel like, they should do it for you as well. But those relationships are lifelong. I'm so appreciative of my relationship with Grant, my relationship with David Robinson. I was happy to see Quorum Capital as one of the sponsors. David and I are on the board of advisors of Quorum Capital. And those relationships would be long lasting. And I welcome, calls from any of the people that I've met over the years that are asking for help. And I've always tried to do any and everything I could to try and assist others. And people have done the exact same thing for me.
I'll just jump in and attempt to speak after Fred here. I think he made some great points. And, I think, once again, not to sort of bring everything back to sports, but you go in a locker room and you have to learn to work with other people. And there's an investment that goes into learning your teammates, learning where they're from, learning to connect with them, so you can have sort of this collective goal that you're pursuing. And I think that experience really helps. And so, for me, I've tried to really make relationships as I've gone on my journey. Even when I was playing in the NBA, I would take time to try to meet with Duke alumni in the various cities that I was in. And really just to learn, to learn, to grow, to try to evolve, a natural sort of curiosity that I've had. And in the process, you, as Fred said, you're reciprocating, you're investing in one another, and with no intention of what that might mean or how that might play out in the long run, but just another resource, another person what I can call a friend. And I like to think I have a lot of friends, and so I think nurturing and cultivating relationships is hugely beneficial, and a lot of the things that I'm fortunate to do now are a direct result of doing just that. Many years before, just getting to know people, interested in what they do, is an opportunity to learn, opportunity to grow. And I think also, being able to now be in a position to help others. And I'm mindful of, I have a friend of mine, a classmate of mine, who his name was Kareem at Duke. And, at the end of our freshman year, he was looking for an internship. And so I told him, hey, call my mom, call my mother. She has her own consulting firm and she's in corporate America. She might be able to provide some assistance. And so she, in effect became a mentor and still is a mentor to this day. But unbeknownst to me, I think Kareem told everybody at Duke. And so my mom, I found this out years later at various, class reunions that, she helped a number of people that I didn't even know, classmates, friends of mine, and still helps them to this day. And so I think having, that desire to pay it forward and to help others and be in a position to deposit into other people and be a resource to them, I think, has great, benefits and sort of is very uplifting and fulfilling. And it's important, and so it's cyclical, but it's all about we are, and we've learned anything this last year, we are wired for connectivity. We are wired to be connected. What Fred does, what I do with basketball, those are experiences. Those are experiences we can come together and enjoy music, enjoy basketball, enjoy whatever. And I think, that's only been confirmed, as we've been through sort of this period of isolation. Thankfully, we have technology. Thankfully, we have the ability to see each other and stay connected in that form. And I really believe that. I believe, connectivity is something that we desire, we need, and we benefit from. But you have to work at it. You have to make an effort, I think, in order to have that kind of connection. And like Fred said, I mean, we've known each other for almost 30 years and had an opportunity to work together. It didn't happen. But, I think that investment, that friendship through the years, along with Charles, it's like, here we are, many years later. And who knows what's in store moving forward in the future. And so it's a beautiful thing. But I think if you do it for the right reasons and you do it and there's a purity to it, I think it can be very fulfilling in the long run. I know it has, for me, for sure.
And Keisha, I'd just like to add, to follow Grant and Fred is definitely tough. But I will also say it truly is about the relationships. I mean, the reason we're all on this panel together is about the relationships. And so one, as I said, Grant was one of the first people I met when I was working at the record store. And I recall back to our days when, it would be Grant, Bobby Hurley, Thomas Hill, Kenny Blakeney. We would all hang out together. And to this day, as you see people progress through their careers and different things, it truly is about the relationships and how you respect and how you appreciate each other. And as Grant said, and Fred said too, it's you owe it to yourself to pay it forward and to pay it back and to help pull other young people up and just to offer some advice, but also offer mentorship. And to me, like Fred said, if you don't pay it forward, you're not doing yourself any justice. And he and I were both blessed with both parents who they taught us at a very early age how important it truly was to give back, how it truly it meant to respect your elders, but to reach back and help others. And through you blessing someone else, in turn, you're blessed as well. So literally, I mean, it's a blessing just to sit on this panel with Fred and with Grant. And Keisha, your support at Central has been great. And David, I've heard a lot about you through Jay Cipriani at Quorum Capital. And so truly being on something like this literally is about relationships and people that really are in your corner and that you can count on when you need them.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about our friends at Quorum Capital, and you're right. And there's a part of this where you think about pivoting from one venue of life to another, because I got to know the guys at Quorum Capital through research that I was doing, and I never in a million years thought it would lead to me sitting on a panel with Keisha and the three of you. But then here we are. You just kind of you like you say, you just kind of build those relationships and see where they take you. I think that's an incredible point. And Charles, you had to go after Grant and Fred, but I got to go after all three of you, which makes that's even harder. But if I don't turn to this chat window, Keisha, our guests are going to be angry. This thing is like 4 miles long.
I know.
Typing in stuff and And so I do want to take a minute and just I've been trying to kind of read through the chat window and assimilate some of the comments and feedback that I'm getting maybe into a couple of sort of big picture questions. And one question that I keep seeing kind of come up kind of connects to being globally adept. And William McKee raised this early on, half an hour ago, in some comments that he posted, but I've seen it elsewhere too. You know, we've been talking about the power of networks and the importance of it being a reciprocal relationship where you're giving back as well as relying on other people in your network. When increasingly the world of sports and the world of music is becoming an international marketplace. It's not just a national or a local or a regional marketplace. When you think about being sort of a global citizen, a globally adept entrepreneur, I'll just borrow William McKee's comments right here because he says it really beautifully. He says, Thomas Friedman in his book, The World is Flat, stated that workers should be proverbial Swiss Army knife. What do you think is the most important skill set as you try to be a globally adept entrepreneur? In other words, how do you take these skills and bring them out to a world where you're interacting with different cultures and people with different expectations? Any thoughts about that?
I'll take a stab at that. Right now, first of all, Fred and I on the sports and entertainment side, but certainly on the sports side in basketball, we have a sport that is global. And credit David Stern, credit, Adam Silver, the incredible players over the last 40 years, and various, owners and administrators collectively to position us where we are right now as a league. I like to say that the NBA is a global marketing and global public relations firm, disguised as a league. and so to grow that brand and have relevance in so many different markets is incredible. And I think the next frontier for the NBA is Africa. And so Africa, there's so much upside, so much potential. I think first and foremost, just sort of using this as a template, just understanding, as you think as a global, entrepreneur or global business, is understanding culture, understanding, what the culture is of different nationalities, different regions of the world, and be mindful and respectful of those cultures as you move forward, I think is gravely important. And certainly I think the league has spent a considerable amount of time in Africa learning, understanding, recognizing the upside, but also some of the challenges that present themselves. I also think when you think globally, you have to understand, having access to capital. I mean, there's a major sort of investment involved as you expand. And so there's great upside, but there's also a great sort of capital investment necessary for that kind of step. And I think you have to just, kind of in line with what I said about culture, you just have to think global. I think we're sometimes accustomed as entrepreneurs to think regionally, in your own sort of your own world or your own region or pocket of the country. But as a global entrepreneur, you have to think on a greater scale and what that means. So what are global needs? What are needs in certain parts of the world, and understanding that and figuring out how you can provide those needs, provide those solutions. So, I think those are a couple of qualities. I'm not saying I'm necessarily an expert, but I think certainly through my association with a global brand and having, been a part of it in a number of different roles, certainly that's something that I take from the success of the globalization of basketball and the NBA.
Do you think that's the biggest challenge with embracing a global market is understanding the cultural differences, or what do you think that what do you think the biggest hurdle to overcome is?
I think that's a huge hurdle. I think certainly, every industry is different, but I think as I look at basketball and certainly different parts of the world. Look at Africa. Africa is 50 some odd countries. I don't know the exact number, but in the continent. And there's different cultures there. And you have to be mindful, I think, and respectful in how you introduce the sport. How business is conducted and done might be very different than how business is done in the United States. So these are all, I think, factors that go into, one's ability to be successful. It's sort of understanding the market, understanding the culture, understanding what works in that particular area. It takes time. You just can't necessarily snap your fingers and come in and expect to have success. But taking the time to really learn, do your proper due diligence, and then move accordingly. I mean, I'm not saying I'm necessarily right, but I think understanding that particular culture and region is crucial to one's success.
Hey, David, can I just jump in and add to what Grant's saying? Grant is spot on, and he is exactly right about David Stern and Adam Silver being those visionaries. I was fortunate to have worked for another visionary as well, in Phil Knight, who years ago had this vision of Nike becoming a global company, and dating back to the 90s when Grant was really focused on building his playing career and becoming an all-star and now Hall of Famer. We at Nike were trying to really understand how we could use our Nike pro basketball assets to grow the sport of basketball so we could hopefully sell more shoes around the world. And so as I think about, in the late 90s when I was working for Nike Pro Basketball and we created this Hoop Heroes tour to travel all over Europe and play a game in Barcelona, play a game in Berlin, play a game in Paris against the best players in those countries and take over the Charles Barkleys of the world and Scottie Pippen and Jason Kidd, 12 of Nike's best athletes with the goal of not only growing and helping sell more Nike shoes, but growing the game of basketball. That was, I think, part of the start and impetus behind a lot of that growth. And then as we moved over into Asia, and as Grant knows, we at the NBA have had a huge focus over the years and growing basketball all over Asia and having the opportunity to go over in the late 90s with Michael Jordan, the first time he ever went to Asia and, visit Beijing and Taipei and Hong Kong and Tokyo to try and grow the interest in basketball and the NBA in particular. Now we see, to Grant's point, how we've grown to this global entity at the NBA, and Nike has continued to grow globally. And Grant is exactly right with our new NBA Africa League, identifying talent over there and having it become part of our NBA family is something we can all be proud of. And then last but not least, we have these global NBA games that we play every year at the NBA. And we at the Hornets were fortunate to take our team over to Shenzhen and Shanghai and played 4 or 5 years ago against the Clippers. And then just last year, we played the first regular season game in France, in Paris, against the Milwaukee Bucks in a regular season game. And so the vision of how our sport, especially with innovation and technology, the opportunities are endless. And I think we're very fortunate that we're a part of a league that has such a great visionary in Adam Silver as our commissioner. I think Nike is very fortunate to have had a visionary and still does, and Phil Knight and his vision, 30 years ago at what we could become as global entities. And I think we're ahead of the curve and something I'm proud to have learned from. And it is being there, learning, getting exposed to it, understanding the culture and becoming part of their culture and not trying to change them and have them become part of our culture. And last but not least, I'd like to say, I know Grant and I both, and everyone in NBA is thrilled that 25% of our players in our league are foreign players that grew up in different countries around the world that have found basketball and a love for basketball and honed their skills well enough to play in the best basketball league in the world.
I just got one thing I want to chime in. Fred mentioned Phil Knight, and I just have a great Phil Knight story that speaks to his genius as a visionary. So real quick, 30 seconds. So
yeah, please.
1994, I just finished school. It was before the NBA draft, and I made a trip out to Beaverton, Oregon, to look at Nike and go through the whole Nike pitch, if you will. And I remember having dinner with Phil Knight, and he mentioned that he could envision me being at the Great Wall of China via satellite for the NBA draft. And at that point, and I didn't quite understand it, it's 1994, and I'm thinking, no, I want to be at the draft with Commissioner Stern. I want to go through the hat and shake his hand. But he was already thinking about that as the next frontier, and he felt like he felt like my game, my personality, whatever would resonate over there. And so you fast forward and to see how Nike has really expanded, not just in Asia but all over the world. He was thinking that back in 1994. And so of course, I that turned me off as an immature 21-year-old. I wanted to be, with Stern, but I just think it speaks to his genius in terms of seeing the big picture, and certainly credit to him and Nike for being able to execute.
That's a great story, Grant. Charles, I can't let you escape this question because, if you think about it, music is the ultimate cultural bridge that unites people from different cultural backgrounds more than almost anything I can think of. Maybe food would be the only close contender for that. But so, when you think about going, and taking a brand and making it global as an entrepreneur, anything you want to add to what Fred and Grant have put on the table?
Yeah, no, I agree with both of them, and music is that bridge that is global. And through, as Grant was mentioning early, through the pandemic, one thing that has continued to be there through this is a lot of music, which, you've seen a lot of musicians who, when COVID hit last March, it's been no tours, so no concerts, nobody out touching fans. But what has happened is through portals like PitchArt or Zoom or Teams, people have still been able to do virtual type shows. And through everybody still maintaining, having the social distance or stay inside or stay at home, music has been one thing that has continued to be there. And, fortunately, Grant was fortunate enough 2 days ago or 3 days ago to call the national championship in college sports. With both Fred and Grant being a part of the NBA, you're now slowly seeing, fans be able to get back and engage in actual arenas. But, to that point, music has been, one entity that through everything has continued to give people some hope and some sanity on things hopefully getting better real soon.
That's a great point, Charles. And I think about how there have been some important innovations. Well, I mean, technology is allowing us to continue to communicate and be together in spite of the pandemic. But I'm thinking back to, some of the concerts that were broadcast on television early on in the pandemic to support musicians and stuff. And that's so important. We could go on for another hour just about the intersection of technology and the power of networks and the importance of using technology as a way of bolstering networks and building businesses. But Keisha, I'm looking at our clock here, and
we're running out of time.
We're running out of time. I know. I got an idea for a last question, and if it's okay with you, Keisha. I was thinking that we've got these fantastic entrepreneurs who are about to go into the semifinals and pitch, and we're going to have a winner come out of that. And I thought that we've got just 5 minutes left. We've got these three fantastic entrepreneurs in front of us. If you guys just had like one message or one piece of advice to not just the teams that have been lucky enough to make it to this point in the competition, but to all the entrepreneurs on the call listening in, just one piece of thinking back to your own life when you were kind of at that young stage, just still trying to hone your skills, what would your advice be?
Embrace failure. Failure is a part of life. Failure will happen. Failure is a time to evolve, a time for growth. I think as an athlete, you learn more about yourself You grow more when you lose. And so, sometimes you don't self-reflect after wins, but you do a lot after losses. And so the same thing I think applies in business and entrepreneurship. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get told no. But it's just an opportunity to get better, an opportunity for growth. So I would just say embrace that. Don't get used to it. Don't
accept it.
But embrace it and use it as a chance to improve your product, your pitch, whatever it might be, and don't get discouraged.
Thank you, Grant. Charles, what about you?
Yep, I would say to Grant's point to embrace failure. Don't be afraid to hear the word no. I would also say have confidence in your business vision and in your dream. And I would say make sure the people that are on your team and that are part of your vision, you guys all align and share the same vision. And I think now is the perfect time for entrepreneurship. And I'm appreciative, to see NCCU and Duke collaborating on something as unique as this, and tying in some great corporate partners as well, and just take the opportunity to reach to achieve and think and know anything is possible. And I think it's three great entrepreneurs that have spoke to you guys today that can say from all walks of life, anything that you dream and achieve can be done. And I think it is truly, once again, about your network and trusting your network and having a great faith in your network. And as I said, I'm blessed to be on this panel with, who I consider one, Fred is my older brother and family, but over the 30 years I've known Grant, he's become family as well. And the biggest thing I say is cheer for your friends and family when they succeed, and when they win, you win. And the biggest thing is I'm so proud of, what Grant's been able to do in his career in business as well as Fred. And I'm always there to support him when I can.
That's awesome. Fred, I've put you in a tough spot, buddy.
You did put me in a tough spot. But what I'd say, and I keep gravitating back to Phil Knight, because I learned so much about business, in the 2 times that I worked at Nike. There are 2 things that come to mind that I think has made Nike ultra successful and be the brand in the sports footwear and apparel business. One is, from day one, they've always embraced diversity and inclusion. You look around the room at any meeting at Nike, and most people look completely different, grew up differently, were raised differently, think differently, and they all are ultra smart and bring those ideas and aren't afraid to express themselves, which I think bring out some of the brightest and best ideas. And then the other, and I think Keisha mentioned it early, you can't be afraid as you build your team if you're a leader. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're building your company and building your team, to have people on your team that are smarter than you in literally every facet and area of your business, have them, have those people that know more about you, subject matter of literally every part of your business, allow them to grow, allow them to lead, allow them to make decisions. You ultimately are responsible. So in my instance, 95% of the time, I agree with my senior leadership team and our managers on decisions we're going to make. If that 5% or so I disagree, we'll have some very spirited discussion and conversation around, what is the best decision for our organization. And then we make a collaborative decision. But you've got to have those experts around you that you can trust, that have the same goal that you have, and allow them to do their thing. And then you support them in doing that, which is exactly what Phil Knight has always done at Nike. And, when I used to go into senior leadership meetings, I always felt like I was the dumbest guy in the room because there were such brilliant people around the table. And I think that's why so many wise decisions have come out at Nike over the years. And I hope that we're running a best practice franchise here at the Hornets because we use and employ a lot of those same principles and make that a part of our mission statement.
That's awesome. Thank you, Fred.
Absolutely.
Keisha,
We want to Thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful, amazing, transformative panel discussion. I hope that I think you can see some of the comments. I'm hoping you can sift through them. You've got a lot of shout outs, a lot of love, and that's what we want. And we thank you for your commitment to, again, providing this kind of insight, your commitment to your alma maters, which we are here, and we love you guys, and we want you guys to continue to always come back and share. You have an open invitation anytime you want to continue to share with our students. But we thank you. We thank you very much. And this will be something that I'm sure a lot of folks will remember for quite some time. So we wish you continued success, and we will still be watching out for you as you guys go on. So thank you. We are going to now welcome back in Stephen. Here he is. And he's going to take us into the next part of our occasion. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you all very much. Wow. Charles, Fred, and Grant, this is just amazing. My phone has been blowing up with people asking how we can get you back for another event, and so we're going to try to do that at some point. Now we and Keisha and David, thank you very much for moderating this very insightful panel. What we're going to do now, this will conclude the public-facing portions of our program for today. We're now going to move into our actual semi-finalist pitches. And well, they'll be competing for a $5,000 semi-finalist winner prize and the opportunity to win our $25,000 grand prize by Visa and $25,000 MVP prize by Karamis, and many other prizes as well. So thank you very much. Please be sure to come back to this same page tomorrow at 12:30, where we will show the finalists, and you'll be able to see their presentations, have some Q&A with the finalists. We'll have another exciting fireside chat ready for you, as well as announcing the overall winners and all of our prizes. Thank you very much for being part of our day one of Pitch, a competition for Black student founders.